Disinformation campaigns from Fauci, Axios, Elizabeth Warren, and CNN. We look at these in today's Not So News. What makes a great football team? Maybe having the greatest of all time quarterback on your team? Tom Brady, who's been a leader for the last decade in football and would make grown straight men simp for him yet and only. Well, if you thought this, you'd be wrong. According to CNN, it's having a diverse coaching staff. As they report in the following story, this NFL coach made diversity a priority. Now his team is headed to the Super Bowl. In the article, they state all three of his coordinators, defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, offensive coordinator Brian Leftwich, and special teams coordinator Keith Armstrong are black. So is assistant head coach and run game coordinator Harold Goodwin. Additionally, the Buccaneers are the only team that has two full-time assistant coaches that are women in assistant defensive line coach Lori Lucas and assistant strength and conditioning coach Marl Javadifar. Tampa Bay's front office also includes Jacqueline Davidson, the team's director of football research, and Carly Helfand, a scouting assistant. Now, I'm not against having a diverse staff, but I don't really care about any of these individuals and their ethnicities or their gender. What I care about is that they're great coaches and great staff for the football institution over in Tampa Bay. The team gets a lot of good coaches, and that's what we should be focusing on. Not the color of their skin, not their genitalia. We should care about the quality of the coaching ability. And they all got on the back of Tom Brady. Next, we look at a continuation of the GameStop story from yesterday. We reported how Elizabeth Warren was looking into regulations after the GameStop short surge last week. In a recent tweet, we look into who is she targeting, the hedge fund elites or the Reddit populace. We see the following story from the Washington Examiner, an opinion piece called Elizabeth Warren Protects Robinhood and Hedge Funds from the Redditors. In a tweet, she says, casino-like swings in stock prices at GameStop reflect wild levels of speculation that don't help GameStop workers or customers and could lead to market instability. Today, I told the SEC to explain what's going on to prevent market manipulation. In the article, they state, in a letter to SEC, Warren warns that the gamemanship of stock surges interferes with the function of the market, although she calls on the SEC to investigate whether either the Redditors or the hedge fund broke existing securities law. She names a sharp rise in the GameStop share price as the problem, making it clear who her real target is. That would be the GameStop Redditors, because they were the ones that were hiking up the price. However, I'm still asking anyone to tell me what was done illegal by any parties in this GameStop incident. Warren is beginning to defend the oligarch elite, showing her inner political self. We really need to push back on this. Next, from USA Today, they did a story mapping how Parler content grew during the January 6th Capitol riots. They have the following chart down here, which looks at how Parler content turned vastly negative as a result of Trump's speech. However, so this is used to imply that the speech incited the insurrection, right? Wrong. If you look at the following New York Times article, they report that the first barriers of the Capitol were breached at 12:53. If you look at this is still when there was roughly 10 to 15 minutes until the completion of Trump's speech. If anything, what they're doing here is saying that Trump did not play or his speech on January 6th did not play a significant impact in the riots that happened. We'll continue to look at this as his impeachment trial begins next week, and we'll continue. Newsweek has a story that a group has spent $1 million on billboards asking Republican Congress members, including Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, to apologize for the Capitol riots. Reported in the Newsweek article, we see Bill Crystal, director of the Republican Accountability Project, said such politicians should apologize even if they feel their comments were made in good faith. Notably missing from the article were Hawley and Cruz's remarks in Congress after the events. They deeply condemned the rioters, and they stated, and at least Cruz on his most recent podcast, he stated that his goal wasn't to just overturn the votes. He was calling for an election commission as done in 1876 to address the claims of voter fraud. Whether you agree or disagree with his political opinions, this is wildly different than calling/invoking any violence. Finally, or next, we see a study from Axios. Study calls conservative claims of tech censorship a form of disinformation. So you would ask, what is the evidence that they use in here? And they bring up the following reports. The report points out how Trump dominated Biden in Facebook engagement from September 3rd to November 3rd of last month, with Trump having 87% of 307 million total interactions and Biden only having 13%. Trump also had 654 million total Facebook interactions, more than any U.S. elected official from January 1st to November 3rd, 2020. And Fox News and Breitbart far outperformed other news outlets on Facebook interactions between January 1st and November 3rd, 2020. So what we see here is a complete lack of understanding what's going on with the conservative argument on censorship. These claims and this evidence don't help the Axios argument. Why? First, most censorship claims were made after the election, when apps like Parler were taken down and hundreds of thousands of individuals were banned from social media platforms without the ability to take their profiles to any type of like term of service trial or any way to reach out for the reason for their bans. Second, Trump having more interactions does not equate to conservative views. CNN, MSNBC, and other left-wing news organizations have been talking about Trump for the last 4 years straight. We would not consider any of them to be conservative. Finally, looking at the last point regarding Fox News and Breitbart, individual news organizations getting more traffic does not equate to conservatives overall getting more traffic. We know that there are more liberal news organizations. For example, if you have 10 groups that get 3 views and 2 groups that get 4 views, that would fit the requirements that they're stating here, that 2 organizations got more news traffic than their competitors. However, we would see that they still get significantly more traffic in general from smaller groups. This argument here does not necessarily mean or imply that conservatives got more viewership. Finally, we look at Fauci and a new flip-flop that he's done. He seems to have tricked himself again. About 2 weeks ago, he told Americans that it was common sense to wear 2 masks. The following quote we have from the Don Bongino show. So if you have a physical covering with one layer, you put another layer on. It just makes common sense that it likely would be more effective, Fauci said. That's the reason why you see people either double masking or do a version of the N95. However, in a recent interview, he said, there are many people who feel if you really want to have an extra little bit of protection, maybe I should put 2 masks on. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's no data that indicates that the double masking is going to make a difference, Fauci said in a video interview on Sunday. Today, we see why it's so important to be precise with your language. If you don't, you lose public trust. How many lives would have been saved if Fauci didn't early on say that it was common sense to not wear a mask at all? How easily disinformation can be spread using data that doesn't support your argument, like Axios did. Or how you face a straw man argument of your political opposition with a billboard campaign. If you're a scientist, speak to the sciences, not your feelings or whatever common sense wisdom you have. It's time to mature as a country, to learn to think again. This is your February 2nd Not So News. Have a good one.